Great.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Lillian, we can hear you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. I want to take this moment to welcome you all to this session today. Green Innovation, Explore Your Opportunities as an Environmental Entrepreneur. This session is organized by Boost Your Business. Boost Your Business is a new program that is launching officially in Mombasa in September. And Boost Your Business aims to inspire Mombasa youth and businesses to go the circular way and the green way, because we believe that green is the future, not just because it is good for the environment, but because it is good for our general health and also our future generations. I hope that we will have a good time as we dive deep into this conversation, and feel free to ask any questions in our Q&A. And without taking any further time, I'm going to hand this over to our moderator, Amani. Amani,
Great.
over to you.
Thank you so much, Lillian, for the brief opening remarks. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to the Green Innovation webinar organized by Boost Your Business Mombasa. I'm the founder and CEO of GabTech, a solid waste management business here in Mombasa that focuses on garbage collection, recycling, and sensitizing the community on proper waste management practices. And I will be serving as your moderator for this session today. So we are so excited and proud to host Olivia Van Den, Susie Wanjala, and Zablon Wekesa to share their insights on this very important topic. But before we dig deep, I would like to briefly ask the panelists to introduce themselves and briefly what they do. Starting with you, Olivia, followed by Susie, then Zablon. Please briefly introduce yourself and tell us what you do within your organization.
Thank you so much, Amani. It's an honor to be on this first Boost Your Business webinar. My name is Olivier van den Ende. I am the founder and the CEO of Close the Gap. We are an originated company in sustainable tech solutions for developing countries from Belgium, but since last year we founded Close the Gap Limited Kenya, based in both Nairobi and Mombasa. And we are bringing sustainable tech devices to, I would say, underserved communities in East Africa. And in Mombasa, we run a technology hub called the Close the Gap Hub, where we are a partner of this program Boost and kind of an initiator as well, together with all the consortium partners. So very happy to be on this panel.
Great. Thank you so much, Olivia, for the brief introduction. Over to you, Susie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Susie Wanjala. I am from Sustainable Inclusive Business Kenya. It's a project running under the Kenya Private Sector Alliance Foundation. Our work is to support businesses with knowledge and support programs for sustainability to thrive. And we focus on 4 key areas. That's the circular economy, redefining business values, people power, that is mainly about workforce. And the other one is, I forgot. I will just check, climate change. I am supporting the sustainable inclusive business with knowledge to run programs and business support activities on the same. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Susie. Over to you, Zablon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Zablon Wekesa, and I'm a product designer by training. And my interest mainly is around community design. So my angle in the circular economy is centered around that. So I wear many hats, but I'm super proud of being the country representative for the Africa Circular Economy Network. I'm also running it's a social enterprise called Circular Design Nairobi, where we look at how design can accelerate the transition from a linear economy to a more circular economy. Yeah, and I'm just super thrilled to have this conversation.
That's great. I'm also super excited to moderate this session. What an impressive CV from our moderators. So to kick off our discussion, in your own definition, and please use the simple terms as possible. What is the circular economy? Starting with Olivia, then Susie, and then Zam. Hello, Olivia, can you hear me? You're on mute.
Yes, sorry, I had to unmute myself. I hope that everyone hears me well, because apparently my internet connection is not optimal for the time being. Apologies for that, but do you hear me well, Amani?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So what is the circular economy? Yeah, I think it's like the $1 million question. I think everyone has its own interpretation on that question, known that the concept of circularity has really relatively recently only gained importance, I would say, worldwide. So it is, I think, still an activity in development, and there is still much room for interpretation and for growth, and which is a great thing. But what is circular economy to me as Close the Gap's CEO? I would say it's about managing your business in a way that you basically have a zero waste process, that you take care of the raw materials and the I would say the nature's gift that you get in terms of precious metals, that you basically treat them in the most optimal way, that you don't lose any of them through the life cycle of the I would say in that case of the raw materials, cradle to cradle, in a way that actually you manage your the conception of your products in a way that the user can use it to its fullest extent, and that at the end of the life cycle and eventually the end of a second life, that all the materials can be recycled in a way that they get back to the new products that will be put on market afterwards. So circular economy to me is basically the circularity around business models, doing it in a smart way, using technology as well to basically make that as optimal as possible. And I look to it now from the lens of a hardware company, but definitely there is much more than hardware only in circularity, and I would be happy to elaborate later on that and follow also the views of the other panelists.
Sure, we will dig deep on that. Over to you, Susie.
Thanks. I believe circular economy is about closing the loops in our business system and our economic system, as Olivier has already said. But I would summarize it into three overall aspects. The first one is to design out waste and pollution. And that's where most of the time Africa and Asia comes from when approaching the circular economy. The second one is to keep materials in use for longer using loops. We are talking about output from one system going in as input into the next system. And the third one is to restore or regenerate natural system, because in nature there is no waste. And then I believe the circular economy is powered by the sun, so sources of energy should be renewable. The Sustainable Inclusive Business Knowledge Center is already setting up a short course on what circularity means in the Kenyan context especially. And I would like to use this platform to invite your audience to check it out in a few weeks, and we might share that with you so you can share. Thanks.
Sure, we look forward to receive that, and we will definitely share with our participants. Over to you, Zablon. In simple definition, what is a circular economy according to you? You're on mute. Please unmute your.
Right. Well, I can just say like the rest, but I guess I get the best chance to just walk through. So as Olivia and Susie put it really precisely, but I'll just build on that and say it's a systemic approach for resource efficiency in which end of life of products and materials are not discarded, but are instead recycled, repaired, or reused through circular chains. So from our design approach, we're looking at keeping materials at their highest value possible. And you design out pollution, then you build regenerative systems. So looking at those three elements, these are fundamental rethink of business models to encourage new opportunities for collaboration across actors and industry. So you're looking at a sort of industrial symbiosis where industries don't have waste. So one person's unutilized resource is another person's raw material. Then you're also looking at a way to extend life, but it's on a systemic level. So from a design aspect, we're looking at it from a systems design angle.
Okay, just for the sake of our participants who might be green in this new concept, would you like to give an example of a local circular economy business?
A local circular economy business.
I have in mind the Osirian Development Company. They are a flower farm in Naivasha, and when we talk about designing waste and pollution, they take after cutting their flowers, they take the stem, and instead of throwing it out, they use it as manure and mulching for the next set of flowers, so they don't have to use toxic manure, or the plants don't get damaged by excessive heat, sun. The next process they take, the wastewater is clean. So talking about the third aspect of circular economy, which is regenerating natural systems, this means that the inputs have to be food grade. This means that it has to be natural. And because they use natural material, the wastewater is healthy enough to be used for the next input, maybe for the animals or for the watering. So that's a circular business, because output from the farm becomes input for the next, and output from the water system becomes input for the next thing that requires water. So I think that's a circular business model.
Great. Now that makes sense. Now I'd like to dig deep on this topic, but before that, I'd like to remind our participants, if you have any question, please use the Q and S to send us your question. Just type your questions, we'll see them, and we will respond towards the end of this session. So starting with Zablon, a green economy aims for sustainable development without degrading the environment. But what does this look like in real practice? How do we start to redesign products, services, business models, cities, and communities? Where are the opportunities? I'd like you to dig deep on this, Zablon.
Well, I had a slide, but just to walk you through that, I'd say where we sit right now, we view the world in three domains, or traditionally as economists, we view the world in three domains. It's economic, social, and environmental. But what the world really is, it's an ecosystem, and it's put together. We have like social technical systems. So we have food systems, we have mobility systems, we have energy systems, and that is all put together with policy, values, technology. We have industry, you have market, you have science. So we have so many things that are working at the same time to make the world move together. And with this, there are three things that we confuse a lot. First of all, human capital is undervalued. Then financial capital is overvalued. Like, we put so much emphasis on financial value, and we don't account for natural resources. So what does this mean in the long term? In the long term, we are tied in a system of just we are consuming as if these materials, most of these materials are precious and they are finite, but we're just consuming them as if they're not going to end. So how we look at this whole conversation, we need to look at it in a way that resources are preserved. So resource incentivized growth has come with a huge environmental cost. And what does this mean?
Would you like to share your screen? You will want to share your screen?
I would like to share my screen.
Lillian, if you can hear me, would you like to give permission to Zablon to share his screen? If it's not possible, we can proceed.
I hope the other.
I think you can do that now. Can you try, Zablon?
No. Right. Okay, I'll just go on. So what we're looking at is, with the linear system, we have the material supply, we have the design and manufacturing, we have distribution and use, and we have the end of life. But when it comes to a circular economy, we're looking at three things fundamentally. We're looking at slowing material flows. So how do we extend the use cycles? How do we enable additional use cycles at the end of the first cycle? And how do we maximize the impact of the end of life at first? So that works earlier on in the system. So we were looking at it impacts a lot on material supply chains and design and manufacturing. Then we also have a look at distribution and use and end of fast life. So how do we narrow flows? So how do we change utilization patterns? Like, how do we think about new business models? How do we have products, for instance, drills that households just require once in a while, but they don't need them to stay long on. They don't need to own those materials. So how do we think about a renting model for such materials? At the same time, we're also looking at creating new loops. So through this creating new loops, we're looking at replacing some of these materials. We're looking at repair, for instance. We are now faced with households. We just look at your household, look at all those electronic equipment, look at your clothes. What happened to the repair culture? You hardly see people wearing clothes that have patches. Consumption is not bad. It's just that we have to consume much more cautiously.
Okay.
Yeah, we want a lot of things and we have access to capital to get those things, but do we really need to have those things at once? So we are also looking at reuse. There are things that can be reused multiply. And one thing I'm proud of is used clothes, mtumba. they are a good use case of, reuse at its prime. We have also refurbished electronics. We use them a lot here. At its par, we have software that has been maintained. Software takes a lot of time to develop, and also those like the science inside those electronics. So if you just take the electronics and you junk them and chop them up, versus maintaining software and some of that science and now reusing it, it's of great importance. Then we're looking at also remanufacture, like how can we now get some of these components and use them for other things. I saw a case study of this person who was using using equipment from laptops and all the electronics to make a wheelchair, for instance, an electric wheelchair. We've seen people who are using components from computers to make 3D printers, and those 3D printers now are utilizing recycled plastics to make new products. So we also now touch on recycling and industrial symbiosis. Now this cuts across the whole linear chain. We're looking at material supply to the end of life. So fundamentally, these three things are the ones that are changing the game in terms of the shift from a linear landscape to a more circular community. And how does that sit within the Sustainable Development Goals? Because when we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, there's a huge implication and hunger for materials, for instance, just housing or just education. All these materials, now we view the circularity vision as a framework that can ensure that most of these communities now thrive and eliminate that bias that is constantly being brought forward. And we're just trying to get rid of that linear, it's called linear lock-in, where we continuously just build on the old linear system.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Zablon, for diving deep on this. Susie, would you like to share or add something onto what Zablon has already said?
Could you, he dived in so deep, I forgot your initial question.
Okay, so the question was, a green economy aims for sustainable development without degrading the environment. But what does this look like into real practice? How do we start to redesign products, services, business models, cities and communities? Where are the opportunities?
Yes, this, I think sustainable development is all about models that incorporate people, planet without forgetting about profit, because then businesses will not thrive if there's no profit. So Zablon said earlier that financial capital is really focused on. I think it's still fine to focus on financial capital, because without finances, there's no business. But I think that the businesses should begin to incorporate social and environmental capital. And a circular economy works in such a way that business functions with all the three incorporated in properly. And if you incorporate materials, rethink materials, and think about closing the loop such that none of the materials is going to waste, you will still end up including a lot of enterprises. Therefore, you will enhance the social capital as well. For instance, we have the Takataka Solutions who earn their profits from selling waste. So they collect waste from homes and institutions, and they separate this waste. And in the process of separation, they include a lot of employees who would otherwise not have a job, because the skills required for this are very low. So they're including the low income communities, which is creating employment. But then again, by ensuring that 95% of the waste is sent to relevant recyclers, they are closing the loops so that none of this waste is ending into the landfills. So that means the environment is also taken care of in the process, but they're still earning their money. So I think that's one way of looking at how to use the SDGs as your guiding principle, because businesses can do it while still earning money, because we can't be circular without finances. That's how I look at the future, being circular and social and still earning money. Thanks. I hope I answered your question.
You just reminded me of a lecture that I recently attended, and one of the speakers was talking about entrepreneurship for this 21st century is about the triple P, which is the people, planet, and then the profit will follow. So over to you, Olivia. Would you like to add anything in the next 1 or 2 minutes?
Yeah, I fully agree with what my two panel colleagues mentioned, and perhaps just a small angle from electronic waste. It was already touched also by Susie. It's indeed about avoiding landfilling, and in that sense, when from the angle that I can bring with our experience in end of technologically devices end of life, it is indeed still a very big challenge, because technology devices as we know it today producers are not able yet to actually produce them without using hazardous and complex fractions. So unfortunately, even today with a circular mindset, we cannot succeed in creating 100% reusable and environmentally friendly components. So we still need some, I would say, some quite capital intensive end processing for the hazardous and complex fractions. So the point I want to make to conclude is that circular economy is work in progress. It's about being realistic and idealistic at the same time. So aim high when you design new products, but still know that the ideal world will not be there today or tomorrow, but probably only a couple of days after. And I think if as entrepreneurs and designers, we take that into account, we will get much farther.
Great, thank you so much, Olivia. My next question to you, Susie, what support systems are in place for entrepreneurs getting into the sustainable space?
The sustainable development space globally, I think, is picking a lot of momentum. Sustainability is the buzzword, circular economy is the buzzword. But if I may speak from a local perspective, legislation is coming already after innovation. So I would just like to urge the entrepreneurs listening that the reason you're an entrepreneur is to create new solutions that will guide the development phase, the development roadmap. So I would just like to urge entrepreneurs to not wait for support systems, but to keep moving. But there are support systems in the industry, like Close the Gap, as we hear from him, in the electronic waste sector. We have MDF in their training. We have you, Crosswise. In Kenya, we have the National Environment Entrepreneurship Fund, Net Fund. We have the National Industrial Training. We also have the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. with supporting policies, with supporting upcoming entrepreneurs with the policy framework. And also under KEPSA, we have the Sustainable Inclusive Business Kenya, which will support entrepreneurs with knowledge, networks, information that they need to achieve, and also sustainability trainings and how your business can become circular and what circular business models look like. So if you tap into what is already existing in the industry, there's already a lot. You just need to have your ears and eyes open as an entrepreneur, because that's also your role as an entrepreneur. And I think the policy will soon follow and the other frameworks that are required. For instance, we now have the National Waste Management Bill, which might be approved, that requires businesses to have circular economy principles, but that's coming already after businesses are joining into the circular economy marathon. So that's the kind of support we are looking at.
Okay, I hope our participants, you're taking notes of these great insights and resources shared by our expert panels. Again, I'd like to remind you, if you have any question, please use the Q&A section, type your question, and we will be able to answer your questions in the next few minutes. To you, Olivia, is there anything you would like to add about the support systems that are available for entrepreneurs in the sustainable space?
You mean, Amani, the support systems that we provide with Close the Gap, or?
Yeah, it could be within Close the Gap or in general.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this program, actually, this Boost program, exactly is certainly, when it comes to Kenya, is designed to be the support system in this type of activities. So I really hope we can find some momentum and traction in Kenya in getting, I would say, aspirational entrepreneurs in this field of circular economy to join our movement here. And as I mentioned in my introduction with Close the Gap, we now have a kind of a tech hub and a co-working space of over 1,000 square meters in Mombasa available. Obviously, with COVID-19, we are not yet in operational modus of being able to host physical meetings and encounters, but we hope that after summer that will happen. So yeah, I'm mostly extending our own facilities as well as a support base, and this program. So looking forward to engaging with anyone who's interested.
Okay, Olivia, anything to add? I know Susie and Olivia have already added some resources, but Zablon, would you like to add any more resources that are available for entrepreneurs in the sustainable space? Please, if there's anything that Olivia or Susie has not mentioned, please feel free to add on to that.
Well, I'd say that forms the basis of support, but most of the support really comes within your own resourcing. And I feel entrepreneurs also have to make a case out of their enterprises. So I feel in terms of just community, there's a very rich system to tap in terms of community just networks. For instance, you're looking at your community, looking at the micro ecosystems. Just if you are an entrepreneur in West, looking at the aggregators and leaning into that, looking at households. There are people who are ready to spend. I look at the people who, for instance, the entrepreneurs in used clothes, Mtumba clothes, and there are these people now who are also kind of resourcing in that space, and coming up with new clothes and new wares around that. I also look at, for instance, the repair ecosystem. There's a huge opportunity around that, and it lies within the within the community. We have apprenticeship, people to learn how to repair things. I've seen a lot of gravitation towards circles. And I feel there's a very rich support system around circles. Just looking at, for instance, service scopes, how can you organize so that you can be able to access knowledge and equipment and and some of this technology to for instance repair Android phones to turn them into other functional things. I'll give you a case study of support that can be found in a place like Shenzhen. If you are well organized production circle, for instance, then you can access resources in a financial market like the one at Shenzhen or China or even Europe, and now be able to move around those resources that might be dormant to here and set up a production line for EVs, for instance. So in terms of available support, I feel it's tied within you as an entrepreneur to explore and network. The African Circular Economy Network, it's a robust network. It's in 30 countries. So just reaching out to the network and finding out what they have to offer, it's a huge service in your work. The Circular Economy Club, these are networks that have individuals who might have a bit of capital that in their jurisdiction is not much. But when you move around that capital, the global capital, you'll get a lot of returns. I think the European Investment Bank, for those people who are a bit on a level that they need to be accelerated, because most of our problems are at seed level. We are looking at below 25,000 US dollars and angel funding. Now that's a difficult territory. I think you just have to save or find ways to, kick off. But when you're looking at beyond 25,000 US dollars, 50,000 US dollars, you've already proved your business model. Then you're talking business. There's abundance of capital. And, now you're looking at, good legal structures, you're looking at teams, you're looking at sourcing people. But for our local context, we have a bit of the teething problems. How do we access 100,000 Kenyan shillings? That's $1,000 to, prove our model, validate a certain business process. In this context, I feel it's where networks come in, your local hub, just being able to reach out to Olivia maybe, or find Susie, or be on the internet and find out what KEPSA is doing, and that I'm super proud of the Boost program that has come in to now give or accelerate some of these budding enterprises or green innovators to just be able now to be in a position where they can access capital.
Great. So from all your presentation, it looks like there's a lot of resources available for entrepreneurs in the sustainable space. I hope they will utilize these resources. And briefly, I will explain about the Boost Your Business program, which is a new program for Crosswise Kenya. So I'd like to open the forum for questions and answers from the audience. We have about 17 minutes to go, so I will ask my expert panels to please be brief on your answers. So the first question is from Clemens Zige. Thank you for following Clemens. And this is what she's saying. Good afternoon. I think one of the waste that hasn't been tapped into in terms of recycling or reusing is used batteries that most people just discard without considering the negative effects to our environment. Is there a way we can advocate for responsible consumption? Starting with Olivia.
responsible consumption for batteries.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think Clemens, it's a spot-on question. It's related to my previous remark that I said that the ideal world is not yet existing in terms of the conception, I would say, of electronic devices. Batteries are one of them. There is some parts of batteries that can be recycled properly. With Close the Gap has been running a program through its e-waste management program called World Loop with the WE Center in Kenya, in Nairobi. I think the WE Center would be an excellent partner also to challenge this question because they have probably from a Kenyan point of view one of the most elaborated views on how batteries can be recycled in Kenya. Yeah, I'm not an expert myself in the battery recycling, but it's a spot-on question, and it definitely is one of those aspects that NEMA, I think, is looking into to see how a collection scheme and also a kind of a funding mechanism could be put in place for batteries specifically.
Great. I can see Zablon taking a lot of notes. Zablon, is there anything you would like to share with Clemens about how he or she can reuse batteries that are normally discarded?
Yeah, batteries are hazardous waste, and ideally we should have a way to properly dispose them. So I will not recommend any handling of batteries, if any kind of manipulating of that, because they are made out of several really hazardous materials. What I can recommend is some kind of producer responsibility, where, for instance, municipalities are in charge of that. Like what happens is, the municipal or the county government can decide to say, okay, every household is not supposed to dump any batteries in their waste. So you have like proper disposal methods for that. Yeah, but
okay.
In terms of, I was just saying, some electronics also might have added value. I've seen people use like mobile phone batteries to power other devices. I wouldn't recommend that because it's hazardous material.
Okay.
But there is a lot of learning to happen.
Great. Questions are coming in thick and fast. I hope we will be able to answer all the questions in the next 15 minutes or so. There's another question from Newton Owino to you, Zablon. You talked of mitumba as a circular economy. What is your take with regards to polyester mitumba clothes in relation to ecosystem?
Yeah, so maybe.
Did you get that, or I repeat?
Yeah, I got it. So just to speak on that, this is plastic waste. Like there's the traditional plastic we know, then there's textiles. So most of this mutumba is 65% polyester. This is like microfiber that leaks into the environment. And in a typical Kenyan household, these polyester cloths are used to mop houses. So they degrade real fast, and they enter our water streams, sewage streams. So in terms of reuse, or in terms of use of those clothes, the clothes should never reach a landfill level. We should find a way to properly reuse them, maybe integrate them into things like duvets, or now it's June, it's cold. So how can you now use that fiber and technology to make new materials that are useful? But what I see, what I see consistently is the clothes are taken to children's homes. That's questionable a bit, although it's a form of reuse. But how do you now find a more higher value to make sure that some of this microfiber does not leak into the water systems or the soil systems after the end of life? So these are questions we are also looking for answers. We don't have answers now, but I'm sure the entrepreneurs out there who are developing some kind of ideas towards that.
Great. Another question from Michael Kiwo, and this is to Susie. How can your organization support us grow into circular economy system and recycling?
Sustainable Inclusive Business Kenya is already supporting a supporting organization. We will support you in knowledge, help you understand what does circular economy mean for your specific sector. We have networks connecting you to other businesses. Maybe if you need volumes, for instance, if you are recycling something, plastic or e-waste, we have a network of businesses under our umbrella and under the KEPSA umbrella, over 500,000 businesses. And these businesses can give you the volumes that you need. So that's networking. There's a lot of technical support that needs to be offered for businesses to become circular, and Sustainable Inclusive Business has the right pool of experts. If you need programs and project implementations, and just general knowledge on sustainability and inclusion, that's what we are here to do for you. So feel free to contact us or drop an email or a request on our website, and we'll definitely get back to you on your specific requests.
Great. Also, Susie, feel free to share the link to your website or contact for participants to be able to reach out to you. Another question from Michael Key, Olivia. Does one necessarily need to use technology to get support from Close the Gap?
Yeah.
If there is a kind of a condition to use technology. Is that what you said, Amin?
Just breaking, Olivia. Yeah, Michael is asking, does one necessarily need to use technology to get support from Close the Gap?
Yeah, let's say we aim indeed to have technology as a lever. So the short answer is yes. The long answer would be that technology is something which really can be, let's say, a broad concept. It's not always the hard technology that you need. And to my experience, technology is often used in kind of any process today that you would look into. So it's always worthwhile to reach out to us with your ideas, and then we will figure it out once we have more details.
Okay, another question from Robert Mrima. This question has not been directed to any panelists, but I would ask Zablon to take it. How do we ensure we incorporate sustainability models in businesses to ensure the theme of consuming only? Okay, let me try to rephrase this question. He's asking, how do we ensure we incorporate sustainability models in businesses to ensure the theme of consuming? This question does not, I'm not understanding it. Lillian, would you like to help me in this? Yeah, Lillian, please check that question. Let's move to another question. We at Roca designed recycle old billboards and banners to produce trendy and eco-friendly bags in Mombasa. How do we access support in key areas in the circular economy? This is from Robert again.
All right. So how to access resources. So I feel these are a very open area in terms of the kind of resource you need. There are different kind of resources. So if it's knowledge on access to markets, so some of the support you need in terms of market, there are now really robust networks in terms of logistics. So I am aware of what DHL is doing in supporting green entrepreneurs who are looking to access online markets. So you only produce on demand, and there's a huge fan base of people who are willing to buy green. So it's linkages to market, and there's a space there that's already growing for green entrepreneurs to access markets. But at the same time, there's also access to technology and there are financial instruments that are being set up, for instance. So there's a lot of blended finance that is coming in that will be accessible in your local banks. I feel that's an area too that hasn't been spoken about. Like, how do you access this kind of seed capital? We have the government funds that become a bit problematic, but we have also a lot of available resources that come in terms of grants. But how do we now have a way? If you have a proven business model, you can go to a banking institution and access capital. So there's a move by development finance institutions like AFD, for instance, to build that capacity through local commercial banks. But these are things that through organizations like KEPSA and CAM can be followed up, so that we find a protocol in which entrepreneurs can be able to access these finances. At the same time, just looking at local hubs, Close the Gap, Kenya. Then we have NILAB, we have iHub, you have maker spaces like Kamau Gashigi has the Gearbox. And we have also, I think Close the Gap also has a maker space. So just being able to access these spaces, you put yourself in a position to get lucky, Swahili Pod, and be well oriented with what it takes for you now to access capital and other resources that are useful.
Okay, great. I'd just like to remind you, our panelists, please let's be brief. Our time is not on our side. Another question, have there been any particular challenges in the circular economy with COVID-19? Susie?
Definitely, yes, because I will not call this a challenge. I will call this a restart button, and usually changes, sometimes people take it as a challenge, but I think it's a restart button because people have really seen the effect of the current linear system that crumbles when something happens that we did not expect. Most businesses, when you ask them 5 years ago what their vision is, they had a clear vision, and nobody expected COVID-19 in 2020. So some industries, for instance, now we were really talking about rethinking plastics, and now plastics is a hygienic product that people are thinking, oh my gosh, we were rethinking plastics, and now plastics, we are using gloves, face masks, they all have plastics. So how do we think around that? So it's really a reset button. It has affected the journey in a positive way, because we will think more critically about materials, we'll think more critically about where our waste goes into, because even now when you throw your gloves out there, people are concerned. Last year, nobody, maybe in the nation, as I speak for Kenya, it would not raise as much panic as now. When I see a glove outside, I would think, oh my gosh, it could have the virus. So it's making us think critically. So I think it's a push towards the right direction. So we'll rethink waste, we'll rethink how we handle it, we'll rethink how we use our materials because of this COVID-19.
Great. I like the restart the bottom concept. To you, Olivia, does circular economy only deal with waste management?
No, definitely not. Circular economy is it's really, I think, all layers of the economy are touched. I think that's what makes it circular. We should really think more in using services. And so, as we say, like not owning necessarily products, but using them. And I think that's also part of circularity, is that we can really then better focus on the resources that we need for those products and keep them in a circular loop. So I've even seen models where clothing and jeans trousers and are being used in a kind of a rental clothing as a service model. So just to show you that it also goes about fabrics and textile up to electronics, and waste is only a short and of.
Olivia, I lost you for some seconds. Please repeat your last statement.
So I said that waste is one small but important part of the cycle.
Okay, I get that. So another question to you, Zablon. What will be the most important material stream in Kenya to make more circular?
Really, most of the materials are important. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the importance, I'd say this, there are a number of angles that we are looking at. For instance, we're looking at agriculture, and we're looking at we're looking at regenerative systems. We are highly subsistent, and we're looking at the amount of nutrients that are leaching off the soil, and the effects of that in terms of our food security and nutrition. And I'm also just looking back to the traditional household where we had like really good indigenous leafy vegetables that were providing some of this nutrition that we now find in supplements. So we have a whole case to build around agriculture and looking at, the effects of chemical fertilizer and now how that now fertilizes the lake. And so that's a case on its own. I'm also looking at plastics, where we are consuming a lot. We are just moving into a middle income country. We have a bit of money to spend, and we are also being bombarded by a lot of products. And we're also moving into a place where we need packaging to value add to some of these agricultural outputs that we create. So in terms of plastics, I feel there is a need of urgency to try to make sure that most of that packaging does not leak into the environment. There's also a rising concern around electronic waste, because now most of us have mobile phones. We go through our earphones real fast. We go through some of our electronic products real fast. So I'd say right now, in terms of priority, all materials are priority, even human resource as some kind of material, I'd say, because you look at the youth bulge, young people moving from rural areas are now just being in urban areas, and that kind of dormant resource now not being utilized is a cause of concern. You look, so priority in terms of material, it's a spread. It's spread across the grid, and there's opportunity across the grid again.
Okay, my director is telling me that we still have time. I was kind of worried. But that does not mean that we should not be brief in our question and answers. So there's a question from an anonymous attendee. Could the panelists explain what they believe should be there as a support for green entrepreneurs? Maybe if they were an entrepreneur in the green space, and this guy is talking directly to you guys, if you were an entrepreneur in the green space, what kind of support would you need? Starting with you, Olivia.
Yeah, but I think like Zablon said, a maker's place today combined with an aspirational coaching culture and a co-working space with good quality of internet and devices and software to make it happen. I think that's a little bit the context of what Boost and Close the Gap in Mombasa is wanting to offer. So I think that's one side of it. Secondly, I think there is a need for some seed capital. You need to put the money where your mouth is. I think from an organizational point of view, we would be willing also to basically contribute to that. Only the sun goes up for nothing, we say here in Europe as well. You need to know that people that want to entrepreneur and set up things, they also need some financial resources to make that happen. So I think it's a combination of both of them. Yeah.
Great. A question to Zablon from Josephine D. Is the sharing economy part of the circular economy?
Yeah, very well. The sharing economy is a part of the circular economy, and when we have like 5 business models. So the sharing economy, there's the circular supply model, there's the resource recovery model, there's the life extension model, and there's the product service system. So the sharing economy, where things like Nopia, for instance, we have bike sharing systems. We have even the rent clothes. And so that's at the core of the circular economy. It ensures that resource utilization is put at its maximum. For instance, a car is dormant almost 95% of the time. So if you put it in a sharing model and you ensure that it's used throughout its lifetime exhaustively and in a very economical way.
Great. Another question to you, Zablon, or it's not a question per se, but one of the participants, Ray Obare, is requesting if you can share the circular networks you have mentioned. And I think our organizers of this session, they will be able also to share this recording with the participant. But if you can, please, Zablon, someone is asking you to share the links to the circular networks that you have mentioned.
Yes, so there is the African Circular Economy Network, at SN. Then there's the Circular Economy Club. Yeah, there are. Then I feel the others are membership organizations, right? Like Kenya Association of Manufacturers is a membership organization. But if you're an entrepreneur and you are at that level where you need a bit of capital and networks to succeed, just tapping into that. Even KEPSA, they're really good networks if you are right for that. Okay. So I'd go with those 2 to start with. But locally, we have a lot of organizations that are mobilizing on a community level and the grassroots. So just being an active citizen and just sticking your neck out also kind of pushes you towards the direction of getting lucky.
Great. Being an active citizen takes us to this question, and that's why I smile, because It sounds like you've already mentioned it. One of the participants is asking, and I love this, how can me as an individual contribute to the circular economy? It's great to see that people want to be part of the solution. Would you like to take that, Susie?
Yes, sure. The circularity, I think, is already a journey that starts from an individual, because even businesses are made of people. There's no business without people, because you have the founder of the business and you have employees and you have the consumers. So first begin by consuming responsibly, making the right choices. If you're buying something, are you able to compare the packaging or the sourcing? Second, just preach the gospel and connect with like-minded individuals, and then the circle will be made wider and stronger every day, because everybody can contribute and everybody's a business in themselves.
Great, I love that. I'd like you to take this also. It's not directed to you, but since you're the only woman in this panelist, I think it can apply to you. Newton is asking, in Kenya, women use synthetic hairpiece, which are highly toxic to the environment and disposal. How do we manage this, please?
Okay.
You can shave your hair there.
Don't take it personal, Susie.
It's an opportunity for business.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Susie, please.
Yeah. My hair is synthetic, so I need to take a breather. We have actually, I have seen a lady from Western Kenya making hairpiece out of sugarcane and bamboo, and that's renewable. So we don't have to get it from somewhere else where it's synthetic. We can support a local entrepreneur. I can't really remember their name, so I would urge the audience to Google that. But meanwhile, while we're still using synthetic hair, I would just recommend that we ask your hairdresser where she's disposing it off. It cannot end up in the landfill because it's very synthetic. I think Zablon earlier talked about producer responsibility. We have hair producers, those people who bring in the hair. What are they doing about it? Because even I am not an expert in it. I don't know what to do about it. So what is the producer doing about it? And we have, for instance, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers who are already putting a demand, and the Sustainable Inclusive Business on producers of plastic in terms of in packaging to take back their plastic. Who is taking back our hair?
I think Zablon has an answer to that. I saw him raising half his hand. Zablon, would you like to take that, please?
I feel the circular economy has never been a problem for Kenya. Where there's hunger, people can, all the food is eaten. I've seen on several occasions, I've visited landfills and I see people collecting that material. So I'm sure that hair is thrown away, but you feel you've thrown it away, but it finds its way back into shops. So we just don't have this information mapped, but everything is utilized. For instance, I'll give you a case study of food waste. At some point, when they were looking at Wakulima market, they were saying almost 40% of that food was going to waste. But what they didn't account for is the informal food sector in Nairobi and the relationship between the mkokotenis or the hand carts that are around Wakulima market. That mkokoteni economy is worth 5 billion Kenyan shillings, and it operates between 3 a.m. and by 6 a.m. you don't see them mkokotenis. What are they doing? They're taking the 40% of the food that is not good for the shelf line, and they are quickly distributing it into these informal food sectors to be converted into food. So in Kenya, we have a lot of people who are doing circular related economies, but we haven't just documented that out yet. So in terms of some of the opportunities for organizations, maybe just doing use cases and bringing out these local use cases that are not being spoken about will be a huge service to also entrepreneurs, to just guide them towards a direction of, how they can validate their business models or replicate some of those useful business models.
Great. Another question from anonymous attendee. There's been a lot of discussion and emphasis about how decisions for circularity and sustainability require facts. Would you say you agree that currently a lot of circular activities do and will not work because the databases is not sufficient? Starting with you, Olivia.
Yeah, but I fully agree that we need facts and figures to demonstrate and basically to make business cases kind of confirmed or not. So again, here I mentioned it a couple of times already. I think circular economy, we are in a relatively early stage. So I agree with what this person is saying. There is not enough big data available on it, but it is increasing rapidly. Certainly knowing younger guys and girls, they are all
I lost you for some seconds, Olivia. For some about 2-3 seconds, you are lost. Please repeat what you just said.
So many circular entrepreneurs are definitely of the digital era, and I'm really seeing an increase of big data in circular business models as well. So it's a matter of time. But I agree, we should be able to make it accountable, and that's only by measuring and by sharing those results to the outside.
The second part of the question was, how can organizations, particularly governments, ensure that data and the right kind of information is available out there for green innovators? What key roles do you see institutions and organizations such as Close the Gap and programs like Boost Your Business playing? Did you get that, Olivia?
Yes. So the question is to me, but I think by being a facilitator. So a facilitator that will help with programs like Boost here, to basically gather all the information, have a kind of a single point of contact function, and actually helping also the database supply to actually measure and disclose it. And I think in that specific role, Lilian, who actually co-organized this session, will be also based in the Close the Gap hub and as a Boost manager. So I think this question is well taken, and we will formulate, I think, an appropriate role and responsibility from our side, which we will share with the ecosystem in the coming weeks and months to come.
Great, thank you. Susie, Brenda is asking, how is this circular economy workable with mangrove conservation and sustainable livelihood projects?
What? Sorry, what conservation?
How is the circular economy workable with mangrove conservation and sustainable livelihood projects?
First, with mangrove conservations, right?
Yes. How is it workable with the circular economy?
The circular economy ensures that waste does not end up in the oceans, in our water streams, and in our environment. So there will be, if businesses will be responsible for closing the loops so that there's no open loops where waste will get out and end up in the ecosystem, that's really great, because there will be nothing choking the mangroves, and there will be nothing ending up in the ocean to choke other aquatic lives from growing as they're supposed to grow. And also the air will be clean, so we'll have a general healthy environment. Second, sustainable livelihoods will be automatically empowered if the circular economy is integrated within businesses. Enterprises will be supported. For instance, when you talk about plastic, more waste pickers will be involved, and these waste pickers come from, most of them will be unemployed. When they'll start picking waste and submitting it for recycling, that's money earned, and that's a sustainable livelihood more. So I think even e-waste, if we start here in Kenya, I think we already have so much waste in the environment that if waste pickers can be converted from individuals to enterprises, we'll create a lot more sources of livelihoods, and then we'll create a lot more employment, we'll create a lot more inclusion, because there's a lot out there that can be utilized in terms of materials. Also, when we when we come to, sorry, I know I need to be brief. When we come to also sustainable livelihoods, when we rethink materials, we will have us using more natural materials, which means that instead of industries and importing, we will be sustaining what is available locally and supporting local entrepreneurs, and that's more livelihoods that will be affected.
Yeah.
Right. To you, Zablon. Zablon, would you like to add anything on that? Please be brief.
Yeah. With mangroves, I noted that most of those fisher folks, they are now in a scheme to protect some of this biodiversity, and by then they are being supported by some farms in Europe, and they are getting a lot of, they're offsetting the carbon emission. So these are the carbon credits, and fish are coming back. Fish is coming back. So the fisher folks don't have to go deep ocean to fish, because now with the mangroves, the biodiversity is being restored, and now we're seeing people who are settling in more to just do business and enjoy.
I agree with you. One of my friends is into mangrove conservation in Mikindani, and one of their income generating activities through fishing. So as you say, fish will come back, they will farm the fish and sell it and be able to be sustainable. If you've heard of Big Ship, that's the organization I'm talking about. There is a question from Maya, is asking, how can we ensure that our consumers put our waste product for recycling? E.g., our packaging may be recyclable, but consumers may choose not to recycle the packaging after the product is used. Can you take that, Zablon?
Well, I feel there is a lot of information that these plastic manufacturers are not telling consumers. Just because a product has chasing arrows doesn't mean that it's recyclable. It's technically recyclable, but no one really wants that kind of waste. So in terms of just honesty, and this is where the producer responsibility comes in, we need to be very honest with what we are telling consumers out there. This is a scheme to blame consumers on and put that responsibility solely on consumers. But there's a lot of responsibility that, again, has to start with producers. For instance, from a design point of view, just rethinking some of that packaging. For a long time, we were having these milk packages, and there was an article in The Guardian that spoke about how when you're building a mud house in the villages, it's littered with milk packaging. Now, you've seen a new innovation that has come in, and we are now having milk ATMs. So we've transformed the need to have this low value packaging by having this new distribution model that now enables consumers just recycle some of their plastic containers and just access milk. And these milk ATMs are thriving, and they are lowering the cost of milk in low income setups. So there's a rush for the Kadogo economy. but we just need to hold back and rethink some of these distribution models. As much as there's a need for safety, there's a lot of mistrust. We're like, hey, some people even suspect soda. They're like, soda is made in, yeah. But how do we now create some kind of trust in our system and also maintain a product what is it called, product quality and standard, and also the reputation?
Okay, the last question, and this is my colleague. I can see what you're doing there, Diabu. Thank you for joining. She's asking, starting any business can be a daunting process. How best can you advise the young and upcoming environmental entrepreneurs out there who are still trying to find their footing in this space? How best can they foster partnerships and collaborations to boost their startups? Susie, please take this.
Thank you. Startups and entrepreneurs are really important and appreciated. So I think your first step will just to be legal. It will be a longer process if you're not legal, even if the process is long. It's a longer process to fight with the law. So even if the process is shorter, to be legal with all the requirements that are needed, instead of to blame the long process. So I think that's we require an attitude change, because always the policy will be behind us, because that's our role as entrepreneurs, to be ahead of time. So I think we need first to get clear with that. Second, I think plugging into organizations like the Sustainable Inclusive Business and the KEPSA, which will help now the policies to come forward. The Kenya Association of Manufacturers, these now are the places you need to plug in, because as an entrepreneur, you cannot operate as an island. This will make now the process faster. And when you come in, you need to have a business case. You need to have, you need to put yourself together in terms of how is this benefiting both of us, both the system, the legislative system, and the people and yourself, because you don't have to then go round and round explaining yourself. Once the business case is there, people will see it and people will buy into it. So first of all, appreciate their system, and then try to bring them on board with the right reasons and the right win-win situations. Otherwise, we will be going round and round. They will blame us for disrupting, and we will blame them for being slow.
Wow, what an engaging and interactive webinar. So before we wind up, I would like to share an exciting opportunity. Many entrepreneurs have been asking our panelists, where are the opportunities, where are the resources? And here comes an opportunity. Boost Your Business is a new business incubation program in Mombasa. And our aim is to support both ideas and companies aimed at driving positive environmental and social change. During the incubation program, the selected entrepreneurs will work in validating their business models, supported by mentoring sessions with experienced coaches and experts within the field of circular economy. They will also have access to workshops, networking sessions, and funding to boost your business. Here is the best part. If you are an entrepreneur in Mombasa, then this opportunity is for you. Visit our website on www.boostyourbusiness.com to apply and learn more about the program. The application deadline is 10th July 2020. We can't wait to receive your application. And I'm sure my colleague Lillian will share the link to the application on the chat box. Thank you very much, Olivia, Susie, and Wanjala, for addressing this interesting topic. It has been a great pleasure to moderate this session, and I look forward to more of this. On behalf of Boost Your Business, we would like to appreciate you for joining us today. To our participants, thank you too for joining us today. This will not have been possible without you, and we look forward to receiving your applications for Boost Your Business program before 10th of July. Thank you, everybody. and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you to all.
It's been such a delight.
Thanks, yes.